Welcome back to the Budget Gamer channel, where we bring you critical and in-depth reviews of just about every indie game we can get our hands on, and today we're going to be taking a look at Felix the Reaper for the Nintendo Switch. And somehow this game is absolutely adorable despite its utterly morbid, death-based themes. Diving immediately into the story though, it's one of forlorn star-crossed lovers. Felix himself is an agent of death who's in training to be a full-fledged Reaper. Unfortunately, he's fallen in love with his own personal angel, Betty, and of course, as an agent of life, never the twain shall meet. But as both life and death work their magic in the mortal world, Felix is determined that becoming a full-fledged Reaper is probably his best chance of accidentally running into his angel, Betty. And so this does start us off with the game's motivations of exactly what we're doing and where we're going. Which what we're doing is killing people, and where we're going is hopefully to the altar. As far as the general gameplay is concerned though, Felix the Reaper, if you had any misconceptions, is an environmental puzzle game. And the mechanics and perspective work pretty much like any tactical RPG. Characters move along a map environment divided into squares, and will have to navigate through, between, or around certain obstacles to meet their objectives. Now, playing as Felix the Reaper, there's not much more to be concerned with except for two primary gaming mechanics. Your goal is to inspire an accidental death, and in order to do so, you'll have to take a target item and put it on a target location, so that the wheels of fate can play out as foreseen. This is, of course, mechanic number one, how to actually beat each puzzle environment. But mechanic number two deals more with Felix himself. As an agent of death, he's not all too keen on sunlight. And so the only way you'll be able to get your target item or meet your objective is to stay in the shadows. The L and R buttons can be used to manipulate the sun's rays, toggling them at 90-degree angles, but this won't always provide a path to your objective. And so the real puzzling mechanic comes in finding, collecting, moving, and even occasionally stacking certain items in each level in order to block out the harmful rays of the sun to build yourself a path all the way to the end. Early in game, these two things generally align. You'll find your way from one side of the map to the other, get the target item, and put it on the objective spot. But as you get further into gameplay, those paths may diverge, and you may find yourself building barriers to the sun only to break them down to build them somewhere else to establish your new path. And as you can probably imagine, that does get pretty difficult considering foresight, as well as player intuition for the controls, which is something we will be talking about just a little bit in the critiques. The total gameplay, though, is divided into several different chapters. And one of the coolest things is that each chapter, its art design or its concepts and themes are actually based on history, which is provided for you in the game if you are a bit more of a history buff. Other than that, though, each chapter is broken down into several different levels where you'll be setting up and staging the accidental mishap for the final puzzling scenario in that chapter. But one thing that doesn't normally strike my fancy, that may be neither here nor there for certain players, is that each one of those mini-level sections does have the whole 3 achievement mobile model. And whether the Ministry gives you your little skull stamps of achievements actually relies on several different dynamics. One may be how many times you get hit accidentally by the sun's rays, another for the time you've completed the level in, and another for the number of steps it actually took to finish your mission. And while a lot of the time targets are sub 2 minutes, I have to say, even as a puzzling veteran who is a huge fan of the genre in general, it took me more like between 10 to 16 minutes on the average early puzzle. And this, if you are thinking it, does have a bit of an implication toward the level of severity or the level of difficulty and challenge in Felix the Reaper in general. Which again is something we will be talking about later into the critiques. Looking at the presentation for Felix the Reaper, honestly visually is something that drew me into the game. I saw the little promo video, release video for it, and seeing a somewhat portly, bouncy, pirouetting Reaper was just, it was hilarious, and I really wanted to get into the game and see what it was about. And in all honesty, the in-game graphics are really, really solid, and you can zoom in and zoom out and pan as much as you want and really get a very good impression of the game. Cutscenes and environments, and even the changes in the lighting are all really smooth and crisp. As far as the audio package is concerned, well, Felix the Reaper is tied to the mortal world's music and absolutely loves to dance, as you can tell from all of the graphics every time you move your character. And so you would expect the game to have a pretty killer soundtrack. And while it is pretty decent, in all honesty, it also is something I wouldn't consider to be a foreground element of the game. The music is definitely meant to be more subdued and in the background. And like I said, though it is good, it's probably nothing you're going to want the soundtrack of. Moving on from the mechanics and presentation for Felix the Reaper though, it is time to get into some of the game's critiques. If you've already looked up other reviews for Felix because you were deciding if the game might be right for you and you saw that it had a pretty scattershot of scores across the board, that might be for one of about a dozen reasons. The game is cute and entertaining, and as I've already talked about, the presentation is actually really pro. But one of the problems is with its themes, its cute presentation, and its just arguably quirky and entrancing story. There is a bit of a disconnect for the actual intensity of the puzzles themselves, especially once you get past chapters 2 and 3. And this isn't just in contrast to its story as a blanket difficulty curve, this is also in contrast to its more casual puzzling nature with the little mini 3-point achievements. As a more casual, almost literally narrative-based puzzle game, you expect the accomplishment to be actually obtaining the story, which means once you've beaten the puzzle, that is enough to move on. And so having a pressure at the end of each level telling you quite literally haven't done well enough, well, that 3-part achievement system kind of distracts the player from the story and divides their attention on not just achieving the puzzles to see what happens, but going back and trying to re-achieve them to get a better score, which doesn't actually build up to anything as far as the game's concerned. But besides the overall difficulty level, besides the somewhat disjunction between the micro-level based achievements and the actual narrative-driven scenario, there is one more aspect of Felix the Reaper that brings a somewhat unique difficulty curve in and of itself, and that is the game's controls. And I'm specifically referencing here the mechanic of moving the daylight. Now, while you can go into your system settings and reprogram the keys to your Switch to anywhere you want them to be, the native controller settings in Felix the Reaper use the L and R bumpers in order to toggle the sunlight right or left, but it also uses the L and RZ buttons to pan around the environment. Now, you can also use the left thumbstick to do this, and I'm not trying to make it look like these controls are more difficult than they need to be. But having an integral function of the game literally millimeters away from something that's going to cost you points and achievements, well, it does just seem to diminish player quality of life just a little bit. Other than that though, and in all honesty, there's not much to critique about Felix the Reaper except for the slight disjointed nature of its quirky, goofy, and casual appearance, with its achievement-based incredible difficulty curve. And so if I had to say it, the players that are probably giving it really high marks as far as reviews are concerned are very hardcore puzzle fans who enjoy the intense challenge. And people who are giving it low scores are probably the more casual-based puzzle gamers who enjoy the story and the smooth puzzle environment for more of a relaxed gaming experience. And so if you go into Felix the Reaper knowing those two things, you'll probably either choose to avoid the title because it's not for you, or you'll have a great experience because you know exactly what you're getting into. And that is always my goal. But anyway, that does about wrap up the review of Felix the Reaper now on the Nintendo Switch. So if you enjoyed the review, or especially if you found it helpful, feel free to throw us a comment or a like to show your support, and don't forget to click that little bell icon when you subscribe to stay updated with the latest content. Because we are putting out a couple of indie game reviews a week, and probably of titles you've never even heard of. And so whether it's an easy hard pass or an unforgettable gem, chances are if it's on the Switch, you're going to find out about it right here. But anyway, this has been the Budget Gamers. As always, thanks for watching.